Now, without further ado, we are ready to kick things off with our very first speaker of the day. We have Pauline Boss, who is a PHP and React developer based in Amsterdam, and she's going to be taking us on an interactive adventure through DevCorp. So there will be lots of audience participation needed for this one. So Pauline, over to you.
Thank you, Amanda. So thanks for joining my interactive adventure. I'm going to share my screen now. So first of all, I'll introduce myself a little bit. I know Amanda has done a part of it already. So like she said, I'm a senior full stack developer in PHP and React at Werkspot or Instapro, that's our other brand name, in Amsterdam. And I talk a lot, mostly about Git. So if you have any Git questions, you can hit me up. There's my Twitter handle is in the top right, so I think it's covered by the logo, but it's Van. I don't know if one of the moderators can put it in the, well, there you go, thank you. So if you have any Git questions or any questions about this talk and the Q&As run out later, you can also hit me up on there if you want. I like hip hop, cocktails, and the internet. I am the mother of June, and June was born in June of last year, so she's about 7 months. And I was attacked by a baboon once, but that's a story for a different time. Because today's story is the story of DevCorp, and it's an interactive story, as was mentioned before. So if you're not familiar with the concept of choose your own adventure type stories, there's stories which can have different plot lines and different endings depending on the user's decisions or the audience's decisions. So in this case, you are the audience, and this story will be influenced by your decisions. So let's get to it. So the premise of this story is that you are a software consultant. So you're a veteran software engineer who now works as a consultant, and you're usually hired by teams to help them be more efficient and better at writing their software and delivering value. So you've been hired in this case by DevCorp, and DevCorp started as a startup a few years ago, but now they have investors, and those investors want to see the team grow, want to see the product grow, and that's a bit of a painful transition. I'm sure some of you have been in that transition before and know how painful it can be. So you've been hired to help do it. So you walk into the building and you're welcomed by a lady who looks a little bit rushed. And she says, "Welcome, so happy you're here. So what's your name?" And that is your first decision that you're gonna have to make as the audience. So you can either opt for Ada or Grace. Now I think there was going to be a banner with, yeah, there it is. Thank you. So if you go to menti.com and type in this code, you will see option 1 and option 2, and you can vote for either 1 or 2. And 1 is Ada and 2 is Grace. So what is your name, Ada or Grace? Okay, let's see who the winner is, Ada or Grace. Ta-ta-ta, that will be Ada, inspired by Ada Lovelace, the widely recognized as the world's first programmer. Okay, so Ada, we're so glad to have you. So my name is Lisa, and I'm a product manager at DevCorp, and I'm actually the product manager for the team that you'll be working on. So she asks you to follow her inside, and you basically think a first good step would be to introduce yourself to the team, and maybe a good way to introduce yourself to the team and kind of get to know them is to have some one-on-ones with them. So Lisa tells you that the team you're going to work on consists of 3 developers right now. So firstly, you meet Youssef. And Youssef is basically the wizard. A lot of companies have this wizard type. So he's been with DevCorp since its inception, and he's basically built the product from scratch, from the ground up. He was the only one there, and so he has a lot of trust from upper management because he's responsible for all the success that they've had so far, essentially. That does mean that the buzz factor that he has is through the roof. And if you don't know what a buzz factor is, it's basically the factor with which a company would be screwed if someone got hit by a bus. So basically, if something happened to Youssef, all the knowledge of all the infrastructure and the product as is now, would be gone because it's all in his head. So that's having a high bus factor. And so therefore, he's usually fighting fires other people can't put out, because whenever there's a problem, he's the only one that knows where to look. So his catchphrase is to end every sentence with obviously, because everything to him is obvious. And he doesn't quite understand that maybe not everything is so obvious to everyone else. So next up is Naomi. Naomi is the up-and-comer. So she started 2 years ago as an intern, hasn't really advanced from that position so far, even though she was actually officially hired. She's usually fixing bugs. So whenever there's a bug, it's given to her. And in doing so, she's poked around in the code a lot. So she has a keen understanding of the domain and the product internals. And she's a fast learner with strong opinions. And her catchphrase is, I'm out of stuff to do, because she doesn't really quite have the autonomy or the confidence to kind of take initiative herself. So she kind of waits until work is given to her, and that work usually ends up being bugs. Then lastly, there is Stefan, who is the heavyweight. So he's a big name in the scene. He's a conference speaker and a conference organizer, so he has a lot of connections. So he knows most of the maintainers of the open source software that DevCorp actually uses in their own product. And he's a recent hire, so management decided, we have to do the scale up. So that means we need to have a bit more seniority. So that was kind of why they did the hire of Stefan, because he has a lot of experience and a lot of connections. And his catchphrase has been lately, I never get anything done around here. And he's usually complaining about that and kind of butting heads with Youssef about things. So that day is filled with meetings about the product and introductions and all that. So it's a lot to take in. It's been relatively quiet on the surface, but you do notice that Stefan has been grumbling from time to time. So you kind of wonder what the problem is, and you go home and you think it over. After a good night's sleep, you return to the office, and once again, you hear Stefan kind of grumbling his phrase under his breath. He goes, I never get anything done around here. So you go and talk to him. And he's super frustrated. Clearly, he's really stressed out. And he says, our CI pipeline is so unstable. It takes half an hour to run the test suites, and then there's random errors. So you wait half an hour, and then at the end, all of a sudden it breaks it off. So then you have to do it again, and you end up, even if you're developing something for 5 minutes, it can take hours to deploy because you have to restart the CI pipeline and restart it. And it's just super flaky. So you ask him what might be done to fix the issue. And he says, well, you should probably talk to Youssef because he's done all of that. So you go talk to Youssef, and he's typing away, and you approach him, and he kind of goes, and you've kind of startled him as if you've woken him up from a deep, deep slumber. And he says, look, Ada, I really don't have the time right now. I've got requests coming out of my hoo-ah. And he mentions that he has a request from Lisa to do this massive data export with data that she needs for a stakeholder presentation that's in half an hour. So that's important, and that needs to happen. And he mentions that Naomi's dev environment is broken, so she needs help with that. Otherwise, she can't keep working. So there's two choices to make, and this is the first real story choice, of course, that you have to make. And I would say that you don't necessarily have to make the right decision in your head. It can also be fun to just kind of like make kind of naughty decisions and watch the world burn. So I'll leave that up to you, but just so you know, this is not a pop quiz or there's no right or wrong. You can kind of make decisions and see what happens. So let's see, the first decision that you might make, the first option is to press and to prioritize the pipeline, because you just want this pipeline to be fixed so that productivity can increase for everyone. Or you tell him to handle his other tasks first, because Lisa has this big meeting coming up, and the data is very important for the stakeholders, and also this is the dev environment is holding Naomi back as well, so she can't get any work done. So that's option 1 and 2. You can vote now. So option 1 is press him to prioritize the pipeline, and option 2 is to let him handle his other tasks first. Okay, well, let's see. Option 1. Okay, so that is you choose to press him to prioritize the pipeline, because you tell him, look, I understand that your other tasks are really important, but also this is holding the entire development team back. So the rest can wait, and I know you promised something to Lisa, but I'll take that on my shoulders. I'll talk to Lisa about it and try to explain to her why this was important. You just focus on the pipeline. And so he does. So then Lisa comes up to you and she's like, Ada, did you take Yusuf off that order data export I asked him to do? Because it's pretty important. I have this meeting in half an hour and I don't have the data. So you kind of explain your decision to her. You tell her exactly what you told Yusuf, and then you tell her that maybe, when this meeting happens, she can explain that there were other priorities right now, that there was critical things that we needed to look at, and that you'll try to get them this data as soon as possible, maybe in an email afterwards, and that next time, we will prioritize work on an internal feature, so that next time she can do all these exports herself, so she won't have to bug Yusuf every time. So you kind of explain that to her, and she says, all right, well, I guess that's reasonable. Okay, I'll tell them we've had to prioritize the other work, and I'll send the report later. So you nod in agreement. You think, okay, good, mitigated. She starts to walk away, and then she kind of hesitates and looks over her shoulder and goes, if we're going to start building internal features, don't you think we should maybe hire some more people? You think about it a little bit. And option 1 is that, yes, maybe if we start getting more work in, we might want to hire more talent. Or option 2, you disagree. You kind of want to see what you're working with first and how these improvements will impact the team before you hire anyone else. So voting time. Option 1 again. That's suspicious to me. Option 1, yeah, well, okay. Okay, so you agree and try to hire new talent. If every decision is option 1, I'm going to be irate. Okay, so you think about it and you agree, and you think it's probably a good decision to hire some new talent. If there's more work, you might need some more talent. Okay, so that conversation is over. You go back to check on Naomi because she had her dev environment that was unstable or that was broken, and you're pleased to see that she's actually figured it out by herself. She's fixed it herself. So you smile and you go about your day. So over the following weeks, productivity is clearly increased. The team is shipping more and more, stressing far less because they also are getting less pressure from Lisa, less requests from Lisa. So that's going great so far. Okay, so one day you join a refinement session, and Lisa says, okay, so there's a demand for a customer loyalty system. So basically what they need is marketing is creating a landing page where, they're promoting the product, and then users can enroll from this landing page into a loyalty system where they collect points and stuff, so they're more likely to become returning users, and then they can save for discounts and the like. So Naomi immediately jumps up and goes, "Ooh, I read an article about this product that does it." And she turns around her laptop and shows Stefan what this product is. Stefan says, "Okay, it's a little pricey, but it looks like a good fit. It looks like it does everything we need it to do." So he's excited, and he compliments Naomi on her creativity and her resourcefulness. And then he kind of like rubs his chin a little bit and he says, okay, so I think we might want to, if we implement this third-party tool, we might want to abstract it away from our platform a little bit. So this is what I have in mind. And so he quickly draws out a little diagram. We've got this third-party tool here and the platform here, and he draws like an interface in between and then an implementation for that particular tool. And so, if we do all that, then, these two systems don't know about each other, so blah, 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 and he kind of goes off on a tangent. And before he can finish his story, Yusuf says, "Oh, again with the unnecessary complexity," he says. And he says, he's always talking about architectural decisions, blah, blah, blah. We know how critical this feature is, and we need to get it live ASAP. So he's clearly not a fan. He just thinks that, we could either just implement this thing in 10 minutes, or we can do this whole architectural plan and take way longer for a feature that is super critical to business and that needs to go live in order to comply with the marketing department's campaign deadline. I'm gonna guess it's option 1. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so we're gonna go with Stefan's solution. Arguably, again, might be the better option, so maybe that's the issue, but next time we'll just do it in the chat. Okay. So you think about it, you go with Stefan's solution of abstracting this away, and you're thinking about, okay, this is a completely new feature. It has some interesting design choices. It has some architectural things. Maybe it's nice for Naomi to kind of learn about this stuff. So you suggest that, or Stefan suggests that maybe they should pair on it. And then Lisa responds, that does sound like a good learning opportunity. Lisa is clearly a bit less stressed about delivering value constantly, probably because the pipeline was fixed. So there's 2 decisions here. You can say that you think they should pair on it, or you say, no, don't pair it. This needs to be live ASAP, and we don't have time for this. It's better if Stefan just executes his plan and we get it live. All right, so you have decided that they should pair. Pair, okay. I'm getting a a very clear answer that pair is the winner. I really hope that now there's no now you can see what everyone is voting, that there's no peer pressure to make the right decisions every time. But let's see, social experiment. Okay, so they start pairing. Stefan rolls his chair over to Naomi's desk, and Naomi says, on it. And, oh wait, the other way around. She rolls her desk chair to Stefan's desk, and she's clearly very excited, and they start discussing and typing away. Okay, so it's been a while, and it's time to check in with the team again. So you decide to have more one-on-ones. So first you talk to Yusuf. Yusuf seems a lot calmer than last time. So he says, I'm glad you pressed me on that pipeline issue. I have to admit, I'm a lot less stressed out than I used to be. So that's positive. And Stefan says, I finally feel like I can do my job. Whereas his catchphrase used to be, I feel like I can never get anything done around here. He seems to be a lot more content now. And you talk to Naomi. And she says, I really feel like I can develop here. Because she used to feel a little bit stuck. I mean, she'd been there for 2 years, and she basically was just doing the same stuff as 2 years ago. And now she feels like she can really take a little bit more initiative, and she's learning a bit more about design patterns and things like that. Okay, so on your way home that night, you reflect that this mentorship dynamic between Stefan and Naomi is paying off clearly, and that we're now investing in our team. Where we had 2 seniors and 1 junior, we now have a junior developer that is developing into a more senior role. So we don't have to keep looking to recruit these super expensive hires and paying recruitment agencies a 10% commission. We just have a really good junior here with knowledge of the product, who is developing into the senior role. So you're pretty content with that. And we're delivering value at a pretty good pace because the pipeline was fixed. And so it doesn't take hours and hours to deploy everything anymore. All right, so you get to work the next day, and Lisa's waiting, and she looks like her old stressed self again. She says, okay, so we got some calls in from a few users that are having trouble enrolling. They're coming onto the landing page, and then when they try to enroll, they just get nothing. They just get a blank page. And so this is pretty critical because these are new users, obviously, that we want to enroll. And this isn't exactly a welcoming start to the product. So basically, all of these people who would have been potential customers now are dropping off and are not becoming customers. So that has a direct impact on the business. So we need to get this fixed ASAP. All right, let's look into that. But before we do, I do have an update on the hire we were talking about. So I've brought in Mike, who is a senior developer, and he should really be able to help us drive us forward and grow more as a team. So Lisa is very excited, of course. It was her idea after all. And so Yusuf has been looking into this issue that people are getting on this landing page. And he's kind of like typing in his terminal, and he says, I think I see the problem. It seems we've misconfigured one of the proxies. So basically what's happening is people are being sent to the wrong place when they try to enroll, and that place doesn't exist. So, okay, that's an issue. How can we solve it? It says, I could just edit the configuration on production right now, and that would fix it. You're thinking, okay, is this what you usually do? It says, sure, we all do. We all know what we're doing. We're all capable developers. So, if there's a critical, we can just do it on production. Okay, you think about that for a little bit, because this issue does need to be fixed like now. So you can either choose to, trust Yusuf and let him edit the configuration for the proxies on production. Keep in mind that he's built this entire infrastructure. He knows exactly what he's doing. Or you say that, people aren't robots. They make mistakes, and this goes through the pipeline like everything else. You say people make mistakes, and this goes through the pipeline like everything else. All right, that's fair. Okay, so I guess it's a good thing we have a workable pipeline now. Otherwise, this would have taken ages, and that wouldn't have been good. You say, yes, Lisa, that is good. So it's fixed. It goes through the pipeline, and it's all good. Then the next day, the new developer arrives, and you introduce them to the team. And you tell them that he's a very experienced engineer, and he's expected to really increase our productivity, and he's really excited to join. He says, "Hey team, I can't wait to dive into the domain, and I can't wait to help you all out." And Naomi says, "Oh, I can help you with that. Why don't you pair up with me?" And they sit down together, and she walks her through the entire product and kind of explains the domain to him. They do that for the rest of the day. All right. So Lisa that afternoon has been in a meeting with management, and it turns out that tool is not doing exactly what we want it to do, and that's not great because it was a little pricey. So she's basically asking, is there an alternative for it? Because management is pressuring her to get a cheaper option that actually does what we want it to do. So Naomi turns to her laptop and she says, okay, I'm going to research this right now. I'm going to see if there's any alternatives. So she does that for a few hours and then says, okay, so there's a much, much cheaper alternative, and it actually has a lot more flexibility, so we can build on top of that whatever extra features or functionality we might need. So Stefan says, well, let's get to it. And they sit down for a minute, and for about 30 minutes, they start developing together, and they've just really easily taken the implementation of the other tool and swapped it out for a different implementation, and hey presto, they've swapped out the whole tool. And it's been deployed already because of the pipeline being so fast. So Lisa's going to be really happy with you guys. Oh, the picture's flipped. Sorry about that. So a few days later, Yusuf is not there to help you, and Lisa is panicking once again. Says, okay, something's broken on production again. We're losing orders because people aren't receiving their account confirmation email. So, okay, they can enroll now, but they can't confirm their account, so they can't make the orders. And Naomi is in the background, kind of eavesdropping the conversation. You see her kind of typing away and clicking here and there, trying to reproduce the issue. And she says, okay, I see what's going on. There's something wrong with the email service, and Yusuf showed me one time when we were pairing how to fix it. So she just brings the service back up because it was down, and she says, well, it should be back up in a few minutes, and it is. And then when she's done, she shows Mike how it works so that if it ever happens again, Mike can fix it himself. All right, so your time has almost come to an end, your time at DevCorp, and you kind of reflect on the last half year or so at DevCorp. And you start to feel a little bit nervous because you have to meet with the board soon. And they're gonna basically decide, is funding going to continue or do we not see a future? I think we all know where this is going. And you think, have I made a positive impact on DevCorp? All right, so that next day you take Naomi aside for a chat, and she looks lively and happy, and she plops down in front of you, and you explain to her a couple of things that she's really developed and stepped up over the few months. So there's a few things that you tell her, that her knowledge that she already had about product internals is really invaluable, and you can bring in a new hire, but that experience with the actual product and the internals is just something that a new hire is not going to have, no matter how much experience they have. And she's now also shown that she can hold her own when there's critical bugs, and she has the confidence to step up and fix those things. She's picked up a lot of new skills through pairing with Stefan and Yusuf, and she's even passed that knowledge on to a new teammate. So that's really great. And that's why you have decided to give her a raise, and you are officially promoting her to senior. So you tell her that we are really happy to have seen the progress that she's made in half year, and we really want to see how it develops further. So her eyes light up and she thanks you, and she looks like she's never been happier, and it's just miles away from what she was like when you first came in. So a few weeks later, it's time to meet with the board. So you go into the big conference room with a big conference table, the shiny boardroom, because today is the board meeting, and you're sweating a little bit. You collect yourself for a minute and you stepped in. And today you hear how you've done, and if DevCorp has improved enough for them to continue funding. So Lisa closes the door behind you, and she also looks just as nervous as you, if not worse. So the final verdict is that, of course, they're happy with the improvements that you've made. Let's go kind of over why that is. So our throughput is, they say that our throughput is through the roof compared to before. We're shipping features and delivering value at unprecedented speeds. I think we can figure out why that is. That's, because of the pipeline, it's freed up a lot of resources. We've also made a new hire, and not only have we made a new hire, we've been able to bring him onto the team and share our knowledge of the product with him, so he can just hit the ground running as soon as he joined. You've managed to keep the entire team together. We've lost nobody, and we've invested in the team. They've developed their skills. They've started working together and cooperating more efficiently. You did do a new hire that was expensive, but he did seem like a really good hire because he was very experienced, and like I said, he was really onboarded really well. So he could really start delivering value as soon as he joined. And there's been a few like pricey expenses like that tool, for instance, and that new hire here and there, but they seem pretty reasonable. And also, you know, you've swapped out that expensive tool for a cheaper alternative at some point, so it's all great. And the speed at which the critical outage was fixed was really good, because it was just fixed straight away, and then it was deployed, and it was all good. So they're all very happy. Congratulations. You literally did not make any bad decision. And if you're curious, I can kind of like go over, because I find personally that when all the decisions are like the good decisions, it's a little more boring. So if you're curious as to what other decisions you could have made and what that would have meant for the story, please ask in the chat. Lastly, I want to thank you for playing, and I want to give special thanks for my coworker for telling me about Twine, which is what I use to make this. It's like a tool that helps you make like these choose your own adventure things, and it kind of generates HTML for it. And then Verxpult for the use of our Menti license, which actually didn't work, which is strange because it usually does. My friend Naomi for playing Naomi, and my coworkers Sophie, Dan, Anton, and Steven for playing the other characters. And lastly, She Sharp for inviting me. If you want to play around with the story, by the way, you can scan that QR code and it will have some values differently. But most of it, like the storyline and stuff, is completely the same. So you can just play around with it if you like. Okay, so let's just see if there's questions. None so far, but
it would be great to hear just quickly. We have like 3 minutes left, but I'd love to hear what some of the other options were. Like if someone made all the wrong decisions, where would we have ended up at the end of this?
Okay, so there is a few things that could have gone really wrong. For instance, if you don't let Stefan and Naomi pair, and if you would have gone for the non-Stefan decision, abstracting that third-party tool away from them, basically Stefan would have left because he wouldn't have been happy. Naomi wouldn't have developed, so when that bug came along, when Yusef was gone, she wouldn't have known what to do, and all hell breaks loose. There's even a variable for that. You could have not fixed the pipeline, which basically makes it so that you can't progress basically at all, because there's no time to do anything else. So they just end up fixing bugs constantly and not being able to implement other features. Yeah.
So we were pretty lucky, all things considered.
Yeah, lucky, or just like the safer. I guess
everyone's an engineer probably on this call, so yeah.
That's why I'm always saying, like, don't worry about always making the right decisions, because sometimes it can be more fun to make all the bad decisions.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Pauline, for joining us today. It was such a fun, interactive presentation. And we're looking forward to maybe collaborating with you in the future as well. Thank you so much.